The alien leaders were fucked, their fleet smashed to pieces by the Andorian Empire's genocidal onslaught, until a human in black armor kicked down the door to their surrender negotiations and offered them a fighting chance with his secret human warfleet. General Karos slammed his fist on the table, frustration etched into the deep scars on his face. The holograms of the other Galactic Council members flickered, their expressions grim. "The Andorians have developed a super-weapon that can vaporize entire star systems," Karos growled. "Our combined fleets are nothing but target practice for them now. We've already lost a dozen worlds." "Then it's over," Ambassador Xyloth said, his voice quivering. "We must surrender or face extinction." The Council erupted into a cacophony of despair and bitter arguments. Some advocated fleeing, others wanted to fight to the bitter end. Suddenly the chamber doors burst open. A lone figure strode in, clad in black armor, the insignia of Earth emblazoned on his chest. It was Christian Brown, the human ambassador. "Sorry to interrupt your pity party," Brown said, his voice filled with steel, "but I have an offer for you. Earth has been busy while you all were playing galactic politics. We've built a war fleet with tech that makes your ships look like water pistols. I'm here to give you a choice. Surrender like cowards, or let me lead a strike on the Andorian superweapon with our fleet." Karos narrowed his eyes. "And why should we trust you, human? Your kind are newcomers on the galactic stage." Brown met his gaze unflinchingly. "Because we're your only hope, General. You know it, I know it. The Andorians mock your fleets, but they've never faced humans in battle. Give me this chance and I'll shove that superweapon down their fucking throats." Karos studied the human, seeing the fierce determination in his eyes. He knew that if the human failed, the galaxy was doomed, but if this was their only shot at survival, he had to take it. "Fine," Karos said at last. "The Council grants you command of the mission, Ambassador Brown, but if you fail, we all die." Brown cracked a grim smile. "Then I guess I'd better not fail, General. It's time the galaxy learned what humans are made of." As Karos and Brown began planning the operation, one thing was clear. The fate of every sapient species now rested on the shoulders of one human and his secret armada, the last hope to end to the Andorian terror once and for all. As the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, Brown and Karos worked fast to assemble a crack team for the desperate mission. Zaxxon, a lanky Zorgian with a knack for slicing any computer system, was their first recruit. The tech expert cracked his knuckles, eager to put his skills to the test. Next came Ryloth, a lithe Krellian who could slip in and out of any facility undetected. His dark eyes gleamed at the prospect of infiltrating Andorian defenses. But the most imposing figure was Grok, a hulking Thorgian warrior, with biceps the size of tree trunks. The alien cracked a fierce grin, ready to unleash his people's legendary strength against the enemy. As the team geared up aboard the ISS Prometheus, Brown pulled Karos aside. "There's something you should know," he said, his voice low. "Earth's tech superiority? It comes from a gift we found buried in our solar system decades ago, an alien artifact that jumped our science forward by centuries. We've kept it hidden, biding our time, but now it's our secret weapon." Karos's eyes widened as the implications sank in. No wonder the humans had advanced so quickly. The Prometheus, a sleek behemoth bristling with human ingenuity, powered up its engines. Brown's fingers danced over the control panel, activating the cloaking device. The ship shimmered and vanished from view, invisible to all but the most advanced scanners. Their target, Andoria Prime, where the superweapon that had slaughtered billions was being built. But the enemy would not make it easy. Halfway to the Andorian homeworld, proximity alarms blared through the Prometheus. A patrol of Andorian scouts had spotted them, and they were spoiling for a fight. The scouts' lasers hammered the human ship's advanced shields, but the Prometheus gave as good as it got. Brown barked orders as his crew returned fire, lancing the enemy vessels with searing beams of plasma. Grok let out a bellowing war cry, his blood singing for close combat. The Thorgian led a strike team to board the nearest scout ship, his hulking frame dwarfing the airlock. As the doors hissed open, Grok charged forward with the force of a raging bull. Andorian soldiers opened fire, but their bullets pinged harmlessly off his armor. Grok reached the first soldier and tore him limb from limb with his bare hands, painting the corridor blue with the man's blood. His team surged forward in his wake, cutting down Andorians with ruthless efficiency. In minutes the scout ship was theirs. On the bridge, Zaxxon's long fingers flew over the haptic controls, slicing into the Andorian ship's databanks. "I'm in," he reported, his eyes gleaming. "And you're not going to believe this. That superweapon, it's not just big, it's a fucking planet killer." Brown gripped the edge of the holotable, his eyes hard. "Then we stop it, no matter the cost." As the Prometheus hurtled closer to Andoria Prime, the scale of their challenge became clearer. A massive fleet of warships hung in orbit, a bristling wall of guns and armor between them and the superweapon. "There's too many," Karos said, his face grim. "We'll never punch through." A slow smile spread across Brown's face. "Watch me." His hands danced over the controls, bringing the Prometheus's advanced weaponry online. A low hum built in the ship's belly as the primary cannon charged up, a new human weapon that would make the Andorians regret ever threatening Earth. "All hands, brace for impact," Brown called out. "We're going in hot." The Prometheus cannon roared to life, a searing lance of pure energy that punched clean through the Andorian flagship like a knife through butter. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire, scattering the fleet's formation. Brown pushed the human ship forward, weaving through the chaos, the Prometheus's shields shrugging off the worst of the retaliatory fire. Karos gaped in awe as the human ship single-handedly carved a path through the Andorian defenses, a trail of burning wreckage in its wake. "Ryloth, Grok, get your strike team ready," Brown ordered. "We're going to blow a hole through their defenses and get you boots on the ground. It's time to show these Andorian bastards what happens when you piss off the human race." As the Prometheus unleashed hell on the Andorian defenses, Brown readied his strike team in the teleporter bay. Karos checked his plasma rifle, while Ryloth twirled a knife between his fingers, a predatory gleam in his eyes. The human special forces stood at attention, their black armor bristling with advanced weaponry. "Listen up," Brown barked. "We've got one shot at this. The Prometheus will buy us time, but we need to move fast. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and we might just make it out of this alive." The team nodded grimly, stepping onto the teleporter pads. Brown punched in the coordinates, and with a flash of blinding light, they vanished. They reappeared on the outskirts of the superweapon facility, the air thick with smoke and the stench of burning metal. The Prometheus's orbital bombardment had reduced the outer defenses to rubble, but the main compound still stood, a looming monolith of black steel. As they approached the shattered gates, a group of figures emerged from the smoke. Andorian super-soldiers, their bodies augmented with cybernetic enhancements and genetic modifications. They moved with inhuman speed and grace, their eyes glowing with a cold, calculating intelligence. "Contact!" Karos shouted, opening fire with his plasma rifle. The super-soldiers scattered, their reflexes far beyond those of any normal species. They returned fire with their own advanced weapons, energy beams sizzling through the air. Brown and his team took cover behind the ruined walls, the human special forces laying down suppressing fire. Ryloth vanished into the shadows, his cloaking device rendering him invisible as he slipped behind enemy lines. Karos coordinated the team's attacks, directing fire and calling out targets. The humans and their allies fought with skill and precision, their advanced weaponry evening the odds against the Andorian super-soldiers. Suddenly the ground shook as a massive Andorian mech lumbered into view, its armor plating shrugging off plasma bolts like raindrops. It raised its arm, revealing a devastating pulse cannon. "Fall back," Brown ordered, but it was too late. The pulse cannon fired, the shockwave sending the team flying. Brown crashed into a wall, his vision swimming. He shook his head, trying to clear the ringing in his ears. The mech advanced, its footsteps shaking the earth. Brown gritted his teeth, knowing they were outmatched. He reached for his comlink, his voice hoarse. Prometheus, we need an orbital strike on my position. Danger close. There was a moment of silence. Then Ari's calm voice replied. Acknowledged, Ambassador Brown. Firing solution calculated. Brace for impact. Brown turned to his team, his eyes hard. Take cover now. Seconds later, the sky lit up as a barrage of plasma torpedoes rained down from above. The Andorian mech disappeared in a blinding explosion, the shockwave flattening everything in its path. When the smoke cleared, the mech was nothing but a smouldering ruin. Brown pulled himself to his feet, his armor scorched and battered. Karos and the others emerged from the rubble, shaken, but alive. They entered the breached compound, picking their way through the debris. The interior was a maze of twisting corridors and cavernous chambers, lit by the eerie glow of Andorian technology. As they delved deeper, they encountered pockets of resistance, Andorian guards and automated defense systems barring their path. They fought their way through, their weapons flashing in the gloom. Finally, they reached the heart of the facility, a vast chamber housing the superweapons power cores. The cores pulsed with malevolent energy, their light casting twisted shadows on the walls. Brown turned to his team, his face grim. Plant the charges. We'll blow this thing to hell and be done with it. They split up, each taking a power core. Brown moved to the central core, the largest of them all. He knelt beside it, placing a charge on its surface. Suddenly an alarm blared through the facility, the lights flashing red. Brown's comlink crackled to life, Zaxxon's voice urgent. They've activated the fail-safes. The cores are going critical. You need to get out of there now. Brown cursed, realizing they'd walked into a trap. The Andorians must have known they were coming, and now they were going to bury them along with the superweapon. He turned to his team, shouting over the alarms. Abort! Fall back to the extraction point! They ran, racing against the clock as the power cores began to overload. The facility shook around them, the walls cracking and buckling under the strain. They burst out of the compound, sprinting for the extraction point. Behind them, the superweapon facility exploded in a blinding flash of light, a mushroom cloud rising into the sky. Brown and his team dove into the waiting dropship, the shockwave buffeting the craft as it lifted off. They watched as the Andorian homeworld receded below them, the superweapon reduced to a smoldering crater. In the dropship's hold, Brown slumped against the wall, his armor battered and scorched. Karos and the others looked to him, their faces a mix of exhaustion and grim satisfaction. We did it, Karos said, his voice hoarse. The superweapon is destroyed. Brown nodded, his eyes hard. But the war isn't over. The Andorians will be out for blood now. We need to regroup, plan our next move. As Brown and his team fought their way deeper into the superweapon facility, the corridors echoed with the sounds of plasma fire and explosions. Suddenly, a towering figure emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. It was Zortex, the Andorian Supreme Commander, his eyes glinting with cruel amusement. You humans are more persistent than I gave you credit for, Zortex sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. But your pathetic attempts to stop us are futile. This superweapon is just the beginning of our plans for galactic domination. Brown stepped forward, his grip tightening on his plasma rifle. We'll see about that, you Andorian bastard. Zortex laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. You think you can defeat me, human? I am the pinnacle of Andorian genetic engineering, designed to be the ultimate warrior. With a roar, Zortex charged at Brown, his enhanced muscles propelling him forward with blinding speed. Brown barely had time to react before Zortex was upon him, his armored fists pummeling the human's body. Brown gritted his teeth, absorbing the blows as best he could. He knew he couldn't match Zortex's raw strength, but he had something the Andorian lacked: human ingenuity. Rolling to the side, Brown grabbed a nearby power conduit and yanked it free, sparks flying. He swung it at Zortex's head, the metal cable crackling with energy. The Andorian staggered back, momentarily stunned. Brown pressed his advantage, firing his plasma rifle at the weak points in Zortex's armor. The Andorian's genetically engineered skin was tough, but it couldn't withstand the searing heat of plasma bolts forever. As Brown and Zortex fought, Karos and Ryloth raced to plant their explosives on the power cores. They worked quickly, their fingers flying over the charges as they set the timers. But just as they finished, a hail of Andorian blaster fire erupted around them. They were pinned down, unable to move without being cut to pieces. Karos looked at Ryloth, a grim determination in his eyes. "Get out of here, Ryloth. I'll draw their fire." Before Ryloth could protest, Karos leaped from cover, firing his weapon at the Andorians. The aliens turned their attention to him, their blasters spitting deadly energy. Karos fought like a man possessed, taking down Andorian after Andorian, even as their weapons found their mark. He knew he wouldn't survive, but if his sacrifice meant the mission's success, it was a price he was willing to pay. Ryloth took advantage of the distraction, slipping away and regrouping with Brown, who had just defeated Zortex with a final, devastating plasma bolt to the head. Together they raced to the final power core, only to find it protected by an impenetrable energy shield. Brown's weapons couldn't even scratch the surface. Time was running out. In desperation, Brown reached for the alien artifact that had given humans their technological edge. He had always known it was more than just a source of knowledge, but he had never dared to use its full potential. Now, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance, he had no choice. Brown removed the artifact from its containment unit, feeling its power thrumming in his hands. He pointed it at the energy shield and unleashed a blast of pure, undiluted energy. The shield flickered and died, overloaded by the artifact's power. Brown lunged forward, planting the final explosive charge on the core. "Time to go!" he shouted to Ryloth, and the two of them sprinted for the exit as alarms blared and Andorian reinforcements poured into the facility. They barely made it back to the teleporter, Andorian blaster fire nipping at their heels. With a flash of light, they materialized back on the ISS Prometheus, just as the explosives detonated behind them. The Andorian homeworld shook with the force of the blast, the chain reaction tearing through the superweapon network. Massive explosions blossomed across the planet's surface, turning the once mighty Andorian war machine into a smoldering ruin. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Brown and Ryloth watched the destruction unfold, the weight of their victory tempered by the losses they had suffered. Karos was gone, as were countless others who had given their lives to stop the Andorian threat. Brown's hand closed around the alien artifact, feeling its power pulsing beneath his fingers. He knew that this was just the beginning, that the galaxy would never be the same now that the secret of human advancement was out. But for now they had won. The Andorian superweapon was destroyed, and the galaxy had a fighting chance. It was a chance that Brown and his fellow humans would not waste. The ISS Prometheus turned away from the burning Andorian homeworld, setting a course for Earth. There was still work to be done, still battles to be fought, but with the power of human ingenuity and the mysterious alien artifact on their side, Brown knew that nothing could stop them. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Brown allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Andorians had underestimated humanity, had thought them weak and primitive. They knew better now. The ISS Prometheus streaked through hyperspace, the weight of their victory against the Andorians tempered by the loss of Karos and the revelation of the alien artifact's true power. As they approached Earth, Brown couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. His fears were confirmed as they dropped out of hyperspace and were immediately greeted by a scene of chaos. Earth's orbital defenses were in shambles, and the planet was surrounded by a massive Andorian invasion fleet. "Fuck," Brown muttered under his breath. "They must have launched a counterattack while we were dealing with the superweapon." "We're being hailed by the Galactic Council," Ryloth reported, his fingers flying over the comms panel. Brown nodded. "Put them through." The holographic image of the council members flickered to life, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and worry. "Ambassador Brown," Ryloth began, "we were just about to contact you. The Andorians have launched a full-scale invasion of Earth. Your planet's defenses are crumbling as we speak." Brown's jaw tightened. "We'll handle it." But your fleet is still recovering from the battle at the superweapon facility, Karos interjected. You can't possibly take on the entire Andorian armada alone. Brown's eyes flashed with determination. Watch us. He turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Battle stations, we're going in. The Prometheus surged forward, leading the charge against the Andorian fleet. The human ships, despite their advanced technology, were heavily outnumbered. Andorian laser fire raked across their hulls, shields flaring under the onslaught. On the bridge, Brown gripped the arms of his chair as the ship shuddered around him. Status report! Shields at 50%, Zaxxon reported, his voice tight with strain. We can't take much more of this. Brown's mind raced, searching for a solution. His eyes fell on the containment unit housing the alien artifact, its power still thrumming through the ship's systems. He hesitated for a moment, remembering the destruction it had caused on the Andorian homeworld. But with Earth's fate hanging in the balance, he knew he had no choice. Ryloth, he said, his voice steady, bring the artifact online, channel its energy through the Prometheus's weapon systems. Ryloth's eyes widened. But, sir, we don't know what that kind of power could do to the ship. I know, Brown said grimly, but it's our only chance. Ryloth nodded, his fingers dancing across the controls. The artifact pulsed with energy, its power flowing into the Prometheus's main cannon. Fire! Brown ordered, his eyes locked on the Andorian fleet. A beam of pure, blinding energy erupted from the Prometheus, cutting through the Andorian ships, like a hot knife through butter. Explosions blossomed in the void, as the alien vessels were reduced to molten slag. But even as the Andorian fleet reeled from the devastating attack, alarms blared through the Prometheus's bridge. The artifact's energy is overloading our systems, Zaxxon shouted over the klaxons. The ship is tearing itself apart. Brown's face was set in grim lines. He knew what he had to do. Evacuate the ship, he ordered, his voice steady. Get to the escape pods. I'll stay behind and make sure the artifact's energy is directed at the enemy. But, sir, Ryloth began to protest. That's an order, Brown snapped. Go now. The crew hesitated for a moment, their loyalty warring with their instinct for survival. But one by one they nodded and filed out of the bridge, leaving Brown alone with the artifact. He could feel the ship shuddering around him, the hull groaning under the strain of the artifact's power. Warning lights flashed red, the ship's systems failing one by one. Brown's hands flew over the controls, redirecting every last ounce of the artifact's energy into the Prometheus's weapons. The ship was a lost cause, but he could still use it to end the Andorian threat once and for all. The Prometheus shuddered and bucked, the artifact's power tearing through its systems like a raging inferno. The hull began to crack and splinter, the ship coming apart at the seams. Brown gritted his teeth, his eyes locked on the Andorian fleet. He could see the escape pods jettisoning away from the dying ship, carrying his crew to safety. With a final defiant roar, the Prometheus exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave slammed into the remaining Andorian ships, consuming them in a maelstrom of fire and debris. And then it was over. The Andorian fleet was gone, reduced to nothing more than drifting wreckage. Earth was safe, its people saved by the sacrifice of one human and his ship. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The holographic images of the council members flickered to life, their faces somber, as they took in the news of Brown's sacrifice. Ambassador Brown's actions saved not only Earth but the entire galaxy, Ryloth said, his voice heavy with emotion. His sacrifice will not be forgotten. The council members nodded in agreement, their eyes downcast. They had underestimated the humans, had doubted their resolve and their capabilities, but now they knew the truth. Earth has proven itself worthy of a place on this council, Karos said, his voice firm. They have shown that they are willing to fight and die for the greater good, just as any of us would. The other council members murmured their assent, and with a final solemn vote, Earth was welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Council. In the years that followed, Brown's sacrifice was remembered as a turning point in galactic history. The story of the human who had given his life to save his planet and the galaxy became legend, inspiring generations of humans and aliens alike. But even as the galaxy celebrated a new era of unity and cooperation, questions lingered about the alien artifact that had made it all possible. Its power had been beyond anything the humans had ever seen, and its loss left them wondering what other secrets and dangers might be lurking in the vast expanse of space. For now, though, there was peace. The Andorian threat had been ended, and the galaxy could breathe a collective sigh of relief. But deep down, everyone knew that this was only the beginning. The ISS Prometheus was gone, but its legacy would live on. The humans had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, a species willing to fight and die for what they believed in. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united in their determination to protect their home and their place in the galaxy. But for all their newfound sense of unity, many of the council members couldn't shake an uneasy feeling about the alien artifact. They had always assumed that humans' technological prowess had come from their own ingenuity and resourcefulness. But now they knew the truth, that an alien relic of immense power had been the key to Earth's rapid advancement all along. As they watched footage of the Prometheus's final moments, the council members couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. The artifact had granted humanity incredible abilities, but it had also nearly destroyed them in the end. And now it was gone, lost in the explosion that had saved Earth from the Andorian onslaught. Azyloth leaned forward, his face pensive. The artifact may be gone, but its power lives on in the technology it gifted to humanity. We must be cautious going forward, lest that power fall into the wrong hands. Karos nodded, his expression grim. The artifact was a double-edged sword. It gave the humans the strength to stand with us as equals, but it also made them a target. There will be others who seek to claim that power for themselves. The council fell silent, each member lost in their own thoughts. They had always seen humanity as a young, naive species, still finding its way in the galaxy. But now they knew the truth, that humans were capable of great things, both wondrous and terrible. As the meeting adjourned, the council members couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had been irrevocably changed. The Andorian threat was gone, but in its place was a new sense of uncertainty, a realization that the balance of power had shifted in ways they were only beginning to understand. And at the center of it all was the legacy of Christian Brown, the human who had sacrificed everything to save his people and the galaxy. His name would be remembered for generations to come, a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit and unwavering resolve. But even as they celebrated Brown's heroism, the council members couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the galaxy held. The alien artifact had been a revelation, a glimpse into a wider universe full of untold wonders and dangers. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew that the adventure was only just beginning. The Andorian threat was gone, but there would be other challenges to come, other battles to be fought, and through it all, humanity would be there, ready to stand alongside their alien allies in defense of the galaxy they now called home. The road ahead would be long and fraught with peril, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The age of humanity had begun, and the council members could only watch in awe as the humans took their first steps into a brave new future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.